We now live in an era in which the left insists that we rewrite biology, language, religion, politics, art. All of these things must be rewritten so that we all stay woke. And if you refuse to abide by these new moral strictures of the left, then this makes you immoral. This is why so many people have reacted to President Trump's character failings and said, okay, whatever. At least he's not trying to tell me what to say or what to do. You guys are trying to tell me what to say and what to do. The latest indicator that the left has gone too far in the woke scolding has been Louis C.K. So Louis C.K., before his downfall, was probably my favorite working comedian. And that is saying that despite the fact that Louis C.K. is a wild leftist who hated Sarah Palin, is vulgar, is vile as a human being, he's really, really funny. Louis C.K. is a very talented comedian. Well, if you recall, last year, Louis C.K. was outed in the middle of the Me Too movement for having basically brought back female comedians to his green room and then having pushed them to watch him perform sexual acts upon himself. He went into self-imposed exile and lost tens of millions of dollars and all of the rest. Well, now he's coming back. Well, the woke scolds don't want him to come back. They say that he has sinned. He can never return to public life. I mean, this is the amazing thing about the new woke scolding SJWs is that there's no such thing as repentance. There's no such thing as redemption. If you sin against them, then you must be cast out into the nether regions forever, unless you are sufficiently wildly leftist like Kathy Griffin. Then maybe you get to come back. In any case, Louis C.K., who is indeed a wild leftist, was never supposed to come back. But now he is coming back, and he did a comedy set the other night. And in this comedy set, he made some jokes. Now, Louis C.K.'s brand of comedy has always been transgressive. And we were told by the left for years that transgressive comedy was a social good. Like George Carlin, social good. Richard Pryor, social good. Blue comedy, great. Right? All of these violated barriers, violated taboos were good for society because they awakened us to our own excesses and hypocrisies. And well, Louis C.K. comes back and he does a couple of jokes. And he tells a joke about Auschwitz, and then he tells a joke about Parkland survivors, and then he tells a joke about gender fluidity. Here's a little bit of his set. And the left went nuts on him because apparently Louis C.K.'s brand of humor is no longer acceptable in woke scold world.
I love New York for 20 years now. I'd rather be in Auschwitz. Honestly, I would. I mean Auschwitz now, not Auschwitz. Not back then, I mean Auschwitz now. And I was kind of excited to be in my 50s and see people in their 20s and be like, they're crazy. These kids are nuts, but they're not. They're fucking, they're just boring. You should address me. They're like royalty. They tell you what to call them. You should address me as they, them. Because I identify as gender neutral. Oh, okay. I don't know. They testify in front of Congress, these kids? Like, what the fuck? What are you doing? You're young. You should be crazy. You should be unhinged. Not in a suit saying, I'm here to tell, fuck you. You're not interesting. Because you went to a high school where kids got shot? Why does that mean I have to listen to you? How does that make you interesting? You didn't get shot. You pushed some fat kid in the way. And now I got to listen to you talking?
Okay, so everybody's going crazy. How dare he make these jokes? Well, because he's a comedian. That's what he does. Are the jokes taboo and transgressive? Yes, but that's his whole shtick. Go back and watch his comedy routine 3-4 years ago. It's probably now 6 to 10 years ago, in which he talks about where he says, of course, but maybe. It's a great comedy routine where he talks about all these things that we now consider deeply immoral, but maybe they're not, right? He talks about how, of course, we should make sure that kids who have peanut allergies are never exposed to peanuts. But maybe if we just let them all be exposed to peanuts, then peanut allergies will be a thing of the past in one generation, right? He's been doing this sort of transgressive comedy his entire career. The left has decided he must be scolded out of existence. Well, and then they say we have to redefine comedy, where Louis C.K. is no longer funny. But you know who's seriously funny? Samantha Bee. Samantha Bee and Hannah Gadsby. The best kind of comedy is the comedy where you don't laugh ever. See, what we've been doing wrong all these years is defining comedy as funny things, when in reality, the only thing that's funny is that we ever considered comedy funny at one time. The real comedy is you being lectured on why you aren't enough of a woke person to make those kind of jokes. That's real comedy. True comedy is that. Okay? If this is the way that the left wants to promulgate culture, they are going to lose. Okay, this is the real downfall of the left. They can attack President Trump's character as much as they want. But if I have a choice between listening to the dopes who think that Louis C.K. shouldn't be able to make a taboo joke and Donald Trump tweeting like a moron from the White House, this is not a choice for me. This is a very easy choice for me. If that's my only choice, right? If it's just a black, white, one or the other choice, I don't think you should have to choose either. But if you want to choose one or the other, You think I'm going to turn over the country to people who think that Louis C.K. should be forced to tell knock-knock jokes? You think I'm going to turn over the country to a bunch of people who say that Louis C.K.'s jokes now are deeply inappropriate when 10 years ago, the same people were cheering them on when he was like ripping into Sarah Palin and calling her a C-word? Sorry, not going to buy it. You think I'm going to turn over the country to a bunch of people who have to cancel their own marches because they're not intersectional enough? In Northern California, there was a women's march. Okay, and the women's march in Northern California had to be canceled because it was too white. I'm not kidding you. They actually canceled their own women's march because they said there were not enough black people in it. This is according to it's Annie Weinstein of the San Francisco Chronicle. Northern California Women's March canceled for being overwhelmingly white. They said the decision came after organizers and supporters of the movement noticed participants over the years had been overwhelmingly white in lieu of the march, which was originally set to take place on January 19th. Organizers will discuss a way to broaden cultural representation going forward, the committee wrote in a statement. Instead of pushing forward with crucial voices absent, the organizing team will take more time for outreach. You think I'm going to turn over the country to a bunch of people who think that you can't do a march if people aren't of the right color? Like that sounds great to me. And then turn it over to the anti-Semitic women's marchers who won't march unless they're more black people, and the people who think that Louis C.K. is terrible and that Kevin Hart is terrible. They'll come after Joe Rogan. Everybody who you find funny or interesting will eventually be destroyed by the woke skulls. And President Trump should only be hoping and praying that if that actually happens, that it will propel him to victory again in 2020. Because the reaction to cultural woke scolding is people in politics saying, you know what, I'm not going to be scolded by these people. I'm just going to vote for whomever is most likely to break things. That's where this is going.